Welcome to May 5th, 2026, also known as Cinco de Mayo. We're calling or coming to you from around the world. We actually have a group that is online from around the world. And then we're actually doing this live from Miami at the Consensus event, as well as some other very important and key meetings. And yeah, we look forward to diving into this week's session and kind of bringing you up to speed as to what's happened. First, we'll spend 30 minutes on just general update as to the developments over the last week, and then we will have live Q&A. So thank you for those that are attending. We'll get started with a word of prayer, whoever would like to offer that. No pressure anywhere. I know we've got some mics off and some fun things, but I do think it's important, very important, to recognize that we are spiritual beings inside of physical bodies having a digital experience, so to speak. It's kind of interesting how that comes out, but from my perspective, that's a very serious and important reality to lay down as a foundation for why we're here and what this work is all about, because it's not just physical bodies and spirits. It's more than that, because we're coming together in ways that humanity's never really touched on, and recognizing that's important. So any takers on saying a word of prayer?
Can I give it a wing, Michael?
Yeah,
just a
please.
little short one.
Yeah, please.
Okay, I've never done this before, so here it
That's
goes.
okay. That's what this is all about. We're all in this together.
Thank you, Lord, for giving us this divinely inspired work and community. Thank you for giving us a safe place to share our thoughts and concerns, and especially our love. In grace, thank you, Lord Jesus.
Amen. That was beautiful.
Amen.
I don't know about you, but I got chicken skin, I guess is what they call it. But Danielle, you have such a sweet spirit about you. Thank you for being here and for all that you do for so many, and especially for me, even though I might be quiet right now with what's going on with Gerard, but just know that there's nothing but love there. Grateful for our co-hosts and all the support that they bring, John and Wally. We're grateful for the opportunity to just be able to broadcast this, and for the simple things that we take for granted, such as being a part of humanity and saying, hey, we want to just join this in a way that is not controlled, and it's not, our choices aren't taken from us, whether it's from where we live or where we're born or what our skin color is or what our language is or what our currency is. We're grateful to be able to understand what it is. Specifically, this Declaration of Unity, if you haven't read it, it's very important around life, love, family, community, and choice. And it really enables that. And that's what the digital world is built on, is those principles. As a reminder, it's a private membership association, and some of the things we might talk about might be in the future. We talk about secret combinations that basically come together and take away choice by design. I won't go into a lot of the evil things behind it, but the reality is it's happening, and we've known it's happening, and we're grateful to be a part of a solution that can, over a long period of time, maybe actually make a real difference for future generations. Because it probably, well, I don't know about you, but I think that the dispensation that we've all had the opportunity to live in is pretty dang good, and we just need to keep it good for future generations. So with that being said, there's a private element and a public element. We'll talk a little bit about that and how decentralization can actually be a part of the solution to really free humanity in so many different ways that we probably haven't even thought of or can even imagine today. But we're grateful for the simple opportunities that we have as clear companies to come together in collaboration with many others into this digital world and create opportunities where this can become a reality. Decentralization, true decentralization, can actually become very viable for humanity. The digital world is built on layers, a ledgerless system at the identity layer that connects to a ledger-based system at the finance layer that has the ability to also do private and transparent transactions. So everything basically gets shown, and then you can click a button as a user and say, no, I want to be completely private, or they can click another button and come back in. It's very different than what happens within other ecosystems. Think about the transparency of Bitcoin versus the privacy of Monero or Zcash, but dynamically on a layer that's the financial or transaction layer. And then in addition to that, identity is connected to storage, and identity is connected to communications. And today, we'll probably spend a little bit time touching on the communications, as this is a new part of what we've been building. It's taken us a long time to get to this point. We actually started on a version of this. We forked Signal years ago, probably 6 years ago, maybe 7. And we actually took derived keys, which is tied to the identity, and we built it off of Signal. And then we did a ton of testing. And for years and years, and there's still versions of it. Like I personally run it still, but we're happy to roll out a new system that has communication that actually is the future of not only chat, but also collaboration, marketing, as well as artificial intelligence and agents that can actually be connected to the individual. There's a lot of advancements that are happening there. And then assets, endorsements, governance, and services. Today, I'm actually gonna drop out of here. I'm gonna come into LinkedIn. I'm going to go and search a gentleman, a wonderful gentleman named Chris Bramwell. I think it's Christopher. And today he actually posted an image of him being thrown on NASDAQ, right down there in big old New York. This is a big deal. He's a big deal. I'm grateful for the opportunity to build with him and to grow with him, and the many other folks inside the state of Utah that are actually helping to pioneer a better way for governments to actually stand up for truth, for transparency, as well as privacy. He's the chief privacy officer for the state of Utah. And 2 weeks ago, we had an opportunity to have the second biannual state endorsed digital identity conference in Utah. And we'll continue to do those. The next one is targeted at November 9th. So please mark your calendar, November 9th for a week. We will actually go through not only the state endorsed digital identity, but we will also go through CARI, and we will also go through life examples, real life environments. From this context is living, identity, freedom, and the state. The combination of all of that proves that an individual is alive and not a bot or an agent or artificial intelligence or a robot, but we actually are alive. And the combination of our face, make sure you're charging this puppy, our face with a phone that actually gives us the ability to verify who we are through using derived keys is actually what enables identity, payments, and innovation for the future. And, so again, mark your calendar as November 9th in Utah for the next event. We'll also talk between then and now, Aotearoa and Mexican environments. There's some unique things happening with both of those environments. Mexican's going to be the priority next, and then right after that is going to be New Zealand or Aotearoa. So those are some huge updates there. So I'm going to jump back into this real fast. So these layers matter. If you're not aware of them, please do spend some time to understand it. The goal is to find a happy balance between government and the individual, and where the individual can actually be private, and now governments are actually recognizing, and I shouldn't say governments, because right now it's really the state of Utah is the formal one. We're working with multiple other states. There were 12 that came in October and 13 that came just 2 weeks ago, and then also other countries. So New Zealand or Aotearoa is a big key to that, and we look forward to learning more about some of the things. There's currently a draft treaty that's being developed, but we're waiting for actually Christopher's approval. So Wally, if you could task me to send that off, that would be greatly appreciated. Just to give context for those that may be new, the word encryption is really just math. Some people call it crypto or an industry, but it's really just math. And these words are really just a key. So the word strings equal a key. That key equals a private thing or a public thing that ties to an individual's identity. They're linked with them. But the key is that they own it. So this derived keys and key rotation and key restoration is really important to how the whole world can really come together in a digital and physical way. So very important and very beautiful too. But identity is key, the keys are key, and then payments. So as far as our top priorities, we're focusing on a campaign this year of You Own You that's tied to your Life Vault and around life apps. So we're going to talk a lot about that. We're also launching the payments ecosystem, and this is really the go-to-market strategy. So you've got payments around life merchants and the Life app within particular geographies like Utah, like Idaho, Wyoming, New Zealand, Canada, Mexico, etc. All these different jurisdictions. And then there's some additional things around phones, and I'm just going to stay really tight on those, life and phones, because that's really what we're talking about, even though there's a lot of other movements they all intertwine, and that's why we're taking the long game. So this may take a lifetime or multiple lifetimes, but over our dead bodies, and I hope you as listeners really understand the importance of a long-term commitment to a vision that can actually help humanity in the long term, and not just from one generation, but for generations, many, many. So there's a private system that the individual really needs to own and control their own identity and data and life, and anything that ties to them. Maybe it's a reputation, maybe it's a birth certificate, maybe it's a marriage, maybe it's child records, maybe heaven forbid it's vaccination records. I won't even go into the details there. And then there's a public system that can actually link into that private system. So those environments, to actually stand those up, are really key and important. And we're going to talk a little bit about that, as well as deployments within different parts of the world, and how that actually looks. So what it looks like inside of these deployments, what it feels like, what the markets are, how they all come together, and how it really just links together. So big topics, big realities. And this last week, we actually had the opportunity to stand up a new one. This is My London Life. And I'm just going to quickly click here. My London Life is actually an environment where the individuals can actually own and govern themselves. And I'm going to pull up some photos real fast so you can kind of go through. This is actually last night. Some fun folks. This guy actually did a video on a couple different friends. If you don't know who he is, I'd recommend you look him up. His name is Mickey. And Mickey's actually doing an interesting video with Russell Brand. And Russell Brand is actually tied to some of the work that's going to happen with this London Life environment. So as we go through it, it's really a new type of way where the individual can actually use a decentralized identity to basically vote and identify who they are, whether it's through centralized systems or a verification process, or maybe banking that already has KYC and AML already done. By the way, that's know your customer and anti-money laundering. Those are two principles that banking supposedly has solved, but in my opinion, the technology that we're showing you will actually solve it in a big way. But that's another conversation. So imagine if someone could actually vote, if they could actually verify who they were, if they could actually have, let's say you want to put a park bench somewhere, and we want people to actually, are they in favor of it or not? What if you want a local currency, or what if you want a currency that interfaces in different ways? You're going to see currency shifting over the future. BRICS and a lot of pressure with a lot of the gold environments are going to actually back currencies in a very different way, and buying powers and shifting is going to go along with that. What if you wanted to actually be a guardian, maybe over your parents, or maybe over children? Or maybe as you age, you want to pass this to your kids so that they can actually help to manage your world. There's a big, beautiful environment around that. I'll step through to show you what that looks like. So, and I'll also tie to the state of Utah. So the state of Utah, state-endorsed digital identity, one of the programs is around guardianship, leveraging decentralization, multiple different jurisdictions. We've already talked about keys and derived keys. It really replaces World ID and Real ID with a system that the individual actually owns. So instead of taking your data and putting it in other systems, you actually take it and own it yourself, whether it's taxes or your social media records, or maybe health records, etc. But it really gives you the opportunity to manage your life and your kid's life or your parents' life all on the same string. Now, some people may say, well, I don't have kids, or maybe I don't have parents. But sooner or later, we're either going to have kids or we had parents in some form of our life. That's just how life works. It's a beautiful thing, but it's a reality. So I'm going to go through two archetypes, one around the grandparent. So they don't need to use usernames and passwords anymore. They just download an app, and the state can actually endorse someone to actually help manage that of their aging parents to say, hey, you can still pay your bills, you don't lose your dignity, but at the same time, you're not going to be taken advantage of by some of the grandparent schemes that are going out there. I won't go into them, but there are tens of billions of dollars in full-blown companies that actually set up call centers to actually do these things, and it's wrong. They impersonate grandkids and basically say, grandma, I ran over this person, please send me $8,200 for this attorney fee so that I can not go to jail because I was smoking something or drinking something or whatever. Don't tell my parents. So the point of all of this is that there can be capital controls where an individual can still spend funds, but there's transparency to what and how and when and where. And so maybe a guardian can actually also be transparent in some of the things that they do. So if they're actually doing something, you can see, is there abuse? Is there something that's happened that's inappropriate? But it's all by design within certain statutes. Would be the state of Utah with guardianship and a good example. So I won't go through all the details, but know that that's a really solid use case. Another good use case is where a parent would actually have oversight over their child. So again, they would basically manage things through whether it's payments or identity. But what if a child could actually say, I'll do my homework and then I can play video games. And the people on the video games, a parent can actually approve or not, or the payments on a video game, the parent can approve or not. These are really big use cases that currently parents, at least when I was raising my kiddos, we didn't have those types of tools and capabilities, but it's in there. And not only does it do that, but it's like, where do the kids go online? Not only in games, but online. Is it adult content? Is it other things? So how can this actually be managed? Well, these are two examples, and I just ran through them, super fast, but there's a lot of consistency that ties to that. Some of the things that are important to understand, that the digital world it's not your typical organization or business that just does one thing. There's actually a consistent push that has to actually drive global adoption. So there's unions all around the world. These unions have countries or kingdoms or provinces or states or cities that tie to it. And one of the things that we're starting to track, because what you improve, you measure, then you improve it, is the Digital World City Race. And this Digital World City Race is basically a bettable based of transactions that are measured by AI that says, based upon the different services. So these services within the digital world, there's basically 30 of them, maybe it's 20. And they fall into a couple different categories. These are the categories on the left here. So you can see these different services. And this particular one is around Orem. But let's jump into maybe Luxembourg, right? So Luxembourg overall is actually doing pretty good. Like no, they're centralized. They're not doing good. So when we look at, oops, I don't mean to do that. When we look at some of their, identity, so they're just emerging in a couple areas, governance, same type of thing. So basically this dissects, I think it was 65, maybe it was 63 different jurisdictions. And if you have one that you don't see on the list, just let us know and we'll add it to the next push. Once a quarter, we do a push adding cities and then letting AI actually look at, is it centralized? Is it decentralized? Because there's ways to look at the systems to actually see. For instance, Dubai actually has a lot of maturity when it comes to using blockchain. The problem is it's all centralized. London, here, we'll go ahead and jump into London here. So you can see London has actually done a lot of things that are really wrong. For instance, one of the big things they just came out with was, if you want to work, you got to get a digital ID. And so what that's really saying is, to function in society, you've got to actually comply. When I say digital ID, the centralized digital IDs are doing the opposite of what the state of Utah is doing, the opposite of why this image is the way that it is. This image is here because Chris and others understand that government's role is not to create or give identity to the individual, but to create an environment where the individual can actually act and be accountable and be transparent around who they are, if they want to, or they can actually get endorsed or verified by the state as a third party and then be defended by that state. That's really, really important. So again, monitoring the different types of digital world services that are out there and seeing how different jurisdictions are actually adopting it or not adopting it. And then people can say, you know what? Hey, this London environment, Mike's talking about this crazy stuff. This is actually says that will London maintain emerging status throughout 2027? So it's just a simple statement that AI came up with. This is completely AI driven. And we're going to say, yeah, we believe that it will or won't. And you basically can vote for it. You can actually fund it. You can buy it with DUSD or you can buy it with native. And this is another way you can actually earn native, which is a crazy conversation as well. But basically, you can say, you know what, I agree with that or I don't agree with that. And it breaks it into a percentage and then a percent base. So if it's 83%, it's 83 cents. You're basically putting it in. And then there'll actually be some returns. I personally don't bet. I'm not somebody that believes in those types of things. Whole nother conversation there, but you can place a bet and actually go through it. So that's pretty big. Some of the other things that are important, we're working through different brands. I actually won't go through who they are right now. We've got some key meetings over the next 3 days, and hopefully we look forward to giving you an update there. One of the other big things that's actually has gone live is Idaho Life. This is actually for an environment that would use new types of banners to check out. I'm actually going to go ahead and accept this. So this is an example of the banners. Imagine if you want to pay with, your normal merchant, MasterCard, Visa, Diners Club, American Express, and then you want to pay with Ether or Bitcoin. Or the real reality is you pay with assets that you actually own, you control. Maybe it's a digital DUSD or a type of gold receipt. So let's say you had units like this that are gold backs. This is actually in Florida, the state that I'm currently in, but Idaho does have a set of them. Let's see if this set is Idaho. No, this is actually Florida, but you can see $100, 1/10 of 1 ounce. It's worth about 900 and change. And then 50, 25, 10, 5. There's actually a 3 and a 2. The 3 is like a collector's item, and then a 1, and then there's halves as well. So these sets are now in 7, maybe 8 states, started in Utah. And, it's not just currency, but it's a digital form of currency that actually, for instance, in Idaho, you could go and convert those into cash, or the opposite. You can take cash into gold. Because gold is accretive, it's going to go up over in value. I can't make those representations, but most of the time, gold actually does go up. I won't jump into a chart. Well, maybe I can. Let's go ahead and look at gold here. Yeah. So you can see that over time, this hasn't been monitoring it for very long, but you can see, let's go into something that's different. That's actually silver. But you can see that it does go up over time. And this is really the buying power of the dollar goes down when we have inflationary type activities. So if you're not familiar with what that is, it's basically the value of the dollar goes down over time because it's made with nothing backing it, versus gold, which actually the world perceives this as really valuable. I don't see a massive use case for it. I see massive use cases growing for things like helium or other things that are real energy type assets. I know that, some electronics are made out of that, but that's a different conversation. So, so Idaho is live. The back-end systems are live. The applications are not live in the systems yet, but they're currently under development, and we look forward to rolling it out, not just within what's called Idaho Falls, which is the first region that we're planning to roll it out with the actual support of folks within the Senate of Idaho and the House of Idaho and the county, which I forget which one it is. It starts with a B, but it is it's up in that area where Idaho Falls is and Sugar City is and Rexburg is. Well, do you know what is it? Do you know what, actually his mic's not working. So actually, John, you're from there. Do you know what county that is?
I know it starts with a B, but I'm stuck too.
That makes me feel better because I'm not. Well, I guess we do have indirect family from that area, but anyways, we're excited to roll this out, and there's a lot of work that has been done and will continue to be done. So we're grateful for the folks up in Idaho that are actually coming to these SETI events and engaging in the events and listening to what's there and then taking the prerogative to actually start rolling different types of things out. So we'll talk a little bit more about that. I don't know if I've got a portfolio that's logged in, but any of the Life apps work. You would go ahead and log in. If you want, I can even show you how it works. I'll go ahead and do that real fast. So for those of you that may be new to it, I'm actually going to use Utah Life because any Life app will actually work. I'm going to click on scan, and then I'm going to go ahead and over here and click log in. So again, no usernames, no passwords. 1, 2, 3, logged in, and you can basically see different assets. You can see different businesses, and if it's registered within that jurisdiction, they would actually tie, and then there's a goal to tie private businesses in with public businesses, which has to be done state by state, which there's going to be a lot of work there. But Idaho doesn't have decentralized autonomous laws like Utah does, and Wyoming does, and the Middle East does, I should say, the United Arab Emirates. But yeah, so land titles, this is actually a new module. It has actually just gone live this last week. So you can actually pop in a parcel of land, whether it's land or apartment or a home or multi-dwelling or single dwelling, and you can actually enter this. So if you want to pass ownership to the next generation upon a death, or if you want to say, you know what, I want people around the world to own this home and then I'll do this with it, or, you know, the home gets its own reputation, the individual creating it gets the reputation, the transactions behind it. It's really a beautiful type thing. So that's a good experience there. I won't go through more details, but yeah, this particular land titles and the particular jurisdiction of Idaho is actually live within this last week. So with that being said, there's a lot that's happening in new systems around agents. So imagine if you can just say, hey, create a website that does this and this and this, and it automatically builds the site, grabs the URL, provisions it, actually sets up the MX record, the A record, and the TXT record. Literally, then you can actually say, hey, I want to modify this site to do this. Because you own your own identity and you own your own data, a lot of other use cases start manifesting themselves. So this domain agent's one of them. Let's say that I wanted to have decentralized email or identity. So someone that's actually looking out for your identity on the public markets that's being surveilled or taken. You know, you can pay for different services. And then what about Quest? So maybe somebody actually wants to market to me. They want to give me rewards. They want to get me to come in. And instead of going through a process of where we just get fed these different AI types of things through the normal social channels, maybe Google or Facebook, etc., you can actually do it directly. There's multiple different types of AI use cases. I won't go through all of them, but that is something that we're digging in deeply on. I won't go through the detailed details. I'll go through high-level details. So if you just paid attention to kind of some of the things we're looking at, you might understand a little bit more, but that would take some due diligence on your side. So with that being said, you know, a lot of moving parts, a lot of great things are advancing. Yeah, questions, thoughts, comments, anybody?
I have a question, Michael.
Yeah, please.
I've been with a lot of people in the past several days, and I traveled, so I was talking to people from different areas, just striking up conversations. And the issue that the subject that seems to be coming up all the time is AI. Can you give us some of your thoughts and some of your feelings, some of your knowledge, anything about AI and where you think it's going? And I mean, people are really scared.
To be honest with you, they should be scared of centralized AI because it usually ties to someone else's model, someone else's data, someone else's influence, and it doesn't always have you as the individual's best bet or best interest in mind. Decentralized identity, where you actually own and control it on a phone, is actually the opposite of that, where you can actually say, hey, this is my calendar, these are my contacts, these are my photos, these are my GPS coordinates, these are, you know, whatever data that we currently have. Imagine if we used an act like the Digital Choice Act within the state of Utah, and we requested our data from all these different vendors that have it. And if they didn't send it in, then we would actually get $2,000 per occurrence, per individual, per transaction, per time. I shouldn't say per transaction, but per If they go through it per year and they don't comply, start it over the next year. You know, how many accounts do you have? Let's say it's 100. If you get $2,000 per, that's a couple hundred grand. And all you have to do is check a box, and then you basically can get your data back. If you get your data back and then you layer AI on top of it that you control, that's where benefits can actually help humanity. And where most people don't understand or get it wrong is they literally allow centralized systems, you know, Anthropic included, OpenAI included. I think that some are doing things very responsibly and some are doing things very irresponsibly. And, you know, the bottom line is we live in a time that is just amazing. The ability to have the power of asking a simple question and something scour the world in real time data, and to use reasoning that is, I mean, if you haven't used it, it's very, very intelligent. The question is, who controls it? And that is exactly the things, same things that we've been working on for years. And it's finally time to be able to bring all of this stuff to fruition, together, aligned. And it's exciting. It is, in my opinion, it is a really exciting time to be alive and to be a part of this shift. And you know, we have choice. We can just say, hey, we're not going to do it. We see a problem, but we're just going to talk about it, analysis paralysis, and nothing gets done. But hopefully what you just saw in a report out for the last 20 minutes or 30 minutes is material advancements, where not only is it in the patent system, in the innovation system, in the technology system, but the individual can actually run AI on a device that they actually own, whether it's a phone or whether it's another device, which I'll show you a little bit more about. If you haven't seen the home devices, those things are also programmed to do the same type of thing. So it's an architecture that is decentralized, where there is no central system and the individual can truly own their own identity. For some of the people that have been working on this journey that are on this call, we've been building systems for over 30 years. You know what it started out with? We were building compute capabilities that were local to the customers. Local file server, print server, messaging server, just those three things. All of them, except for printing, has gone off-site. And in some cases, printing's also gone off-site. But I'll be specific. PST files from Exchange installations, they were usually on-site. And a lot of folks were like, you know what? I don't want that, because my IT folks actually have access to those if they were able to export it or do this. And so some people said, you know what? Let's use different things. And I think one of the Novell advantages was they actually started with that, but problem is the features and functions and user experience was not advanced enough. And that's one of the reasons, one of the challenges for the Clear companies is we're doing so many different things in decentralization. The experience that the user feels, the user, you know, whether it's on a device, maybe it's on a phone, maybe it's on a tablet, maybe it's on a laptop, maybe it's on different flavors of it, Linux, PC, or Windows, and then iOS or Apple. And then maybe they want to do it in a browser. And you know what? Maybe they want to do it all at the same time. We have to meet them where they are. And that's one of the reasons it's taken so long to not only to build the technology, but build it in a way where that go-to-market strategy that we reviewed earlier can actually be realized. And I think it's a perfect storm, because at the same time, AI has actually hit us right at the same time when we're launching this go-to-market strategy with the next version. And this is going to be exciting. Hopefully, maybe not. Maybe you'll see some crazy, beautiful positivity in what I'm going to show you next. But boom. What do you see here?
A new phone.
Yeah,
Oh
that's
my
right.
gosh.
That's right. So what if we were to talk about not just one new phone, but three new phones? The 500 series, 700 series, and the 900 series. The 500 series is similar to the 400 series and the 600 series, but it's a little bit different form factor. You know what? I actually have one with me, but here, I'll just kind of show you. So do you see I don't know if you can see my screen here, or I'll turn this off, but basically you can see the difference in size. So this 500 is smaller than the 600. This is the 600 series. So the 500 is smaller than the 600, but it's bigger than the 400, okay? and it's just one screen, but the camera is massively advanced. And we'll talk a lot about memories in the future. But imagine that the camera and the ability, because these are not just phones, these are actually devices that give us our life and our memories. But imagine you've got one that's not just, a single phone, but you also have one that actually folds open, which is the 700, and one that actually pulls open. So it's three folds. So imagine the 500 is just one of these. The 700 is two of them. And then the 900 is actually three of them. They run the same core feature functions, operating systems, RAM, memory, CPU, disk, but they actually have three different form factors that you can get them in. Similar to what the original was the 200 series, the 500 series, and or 400 series, and the 600 series. They were different sizes, but they also had different operating environments. So we actually had to build three different operating systems, total brain damage. We had to build three different, there were a couple different cameras, there were a couple different memory configs, there were a couple different screens and the drivers. With this, it's all one image, but we have three different form factors, and the form factors are just the size. So, and these are preliminary prices, but they will all have the same Clear United benefits that actually get paid out to drive the awareness, just like we saw with one of the others. So the 527, these are some preliminary specs. It'll be absolutely an advanced type environment, solid memory, solid CPU, solid battery. In some cases, it's even better than the current. I mean, I don't know about you, but I've been running my 600 series for almost 4 years on the same device, and my battery is still very strong, very stable. I do see some issues if I don't use the charger that comes with it, but the bottom line is this screen on this new series is going to go OLED, which is actually even better on batteries if you're using black environments. And that's some of the reasons why you see iPhones now where they stay on. They're using OLED, and unless you actually change, it doesn't use any batteries. So it's really cool. So the black stuff is, if you go black or you don't change, it doesn't use any battery. It's a shine, so to speak. And then, the cameras are really good. The memories are really good. The storage is actually growing. So we'll be able to go up a lot, up to a lot of storage and a lot of memory. We'll talk a little bit more about that as we get closer. But the goal is to actually take an AI experience where the individual owns their own data. It's using decentralized connections. It's using identity and storage. And it ties into the AI environment where your data vault, your identity, that guardianship we talked about, the permissions, the sharing, the notes, the assistance. There's so much more that I won't even talk about here that you can do with this. But that ties to some of the things that we're hopeful on picking up some patents that basically provide some protection as we get into this category. And then it will also do things where it actually it provides a level of open stability based upon these patents and standards for the whole industry, the whole world, to be able to answer your question that you just talked about around people being concerned with AI. Well, you should have choice, right? You should have choice to be able to run it locally on your own world in your own environment. So ClearOS Mobile will get a new version. Clear ID will actually be tied in with the states. And then Clear AI will launch, and that will be private, personal, powerful, and on-device intelligence. So this is really a big advancement. And then we'll have other types of features and functions around AI, again, that we haven't talked about, but it'll be the normal, your good ClearOS mobile environment, Clear ID, primarily around the validation and all of that. You'll also get 24/7 support again. So you'll have remote support that is both agent-based and human-based, where they can actually remote control you and do some beautiful things. But instead of having to put an Apple store in every corner, you can basically use the shipping systems and bring your phone up on your own and manage it. There'll also be a new version of the Clear web browser that will actually tie to a mobile environment first, and then it will tie into a PC environment. So it'll be seamless as you go through, the user experience. If you go from a Clear phone to a Windows environment using Clear Web on the Windows environment, or using Clear Web on a Mac or other environments. those are the two first that will actually hit. So this is the next version. It's the Clearphone 727. So this will actually be a dual screen environment. The pricing will go up primarily because the screens just cost money, and there's going to be some more support and product warranty that will actually tie to, you're flexing something over and over. This screen supposedly will have a couple 100,000 of flexes before it has problems, which is crazy. I wonder how many times I've turned on my phone. Actually, I think we can test that. I think that we're actually tracking that. But the Clearphone 727 will be a new device that people can basically pre-purchase, and we'll see what kind of volume is there. There'll be storage up to 1 terabyte that will come on these units, and then a SIM card that will go 2 additional terabytes. So you can actually go 3 terabytes on these phones. Same thing. AI experience, really focused around the individual. And then, I personally will probably run this unit. We'll see. Maybe it'll be the bigger one, but yeah, I like how thin this is compared to some of the other ones. It's actually a little bit fatter, than the current. It's actually a little bit fatter than this is actually the same size as the single unit. So, and then this actually, the 927 will be a triple fold, and it will be a beautiful, very competitive product. I don't know if you remember how you can plug screens into keyboards, and then the keyboards basically do some other connectivities to big monitors. So imagine if this phone actually ties to a keyboard, on the keyboard ties to a screen, and there's no other compute device around. Imagine that for innovation. That is actually what this unit is targeted at. For those that are paying attention, you're getting a first peek at something that I believe is the future, and we're excited to bring it to those folks. Actually, there's some newer stuff. There's actually newer images of this, but super excited to show more about this. We're currently in the testing phases of the base unit. And yeah, with that being said, any other thoughts, comments, feedback, observations?
How does the private search work? Is that like a VPN, or how does that work?
No, it actually uses the DNS resolver to basically separate the traffic. So all ports inbound and outbound, whether it's URLs or IP addresses, they basically use a DNS resolver to do some unique things that also ties to AI. If you remember right, we were using machine learning with that ClearGM technology that basically managed the DNS resolver on the phone. And it was using early forms of what we would call AI now. So a parent could say, hey, this is the type of policy I want to have happen. So maybe there's an archetype around some really tight net nanny, or something that is like loose, but it does have some, maybe it's for a teen versus a 5-year-old. So there's basically different archetypes that can be set up, and then it ties to that. But we don't believe that VPNs or these other things that basically mask or do things like the Tor browser where they pop you somewhere else, or they use different onion type nodes. We believe that those actually create instability within the environment. And one of the things that we look forward to seeing in the future is when we talk about identity, and now stick with me on this because this may be complicated, but when we look at the digital world and we look at these layers, okay, the identity layer is a ledger list based technology that the individual owns their own identity, and then it uses dynamic DIDs or rotations to basically create the next thing that you're doing. So AI can't follow you. Okay. So if you get that in your mind, and then you work with me here and you basically link, I'm going to grab a screen here, and I probably will confuse you. But I'm just going to grab this real fast, and then I'm going to target 2 different areas. I'm going to target up here. So in the web browser, the URL, this is what they call hypertext or SSL, the combination of those HTTP and SSL or HTTPS, the combination of that actually has a key. They use cryptography here, and the browser says whether it's working or not. And then this layer with identity. So imagine the combination of the digital world basically using, or I shouldn't say digital world, but any URL, and then the identity layer using something that can actually build trust between them, okay? So I'll just type a couple different things here. I'll just say did here, and I'll say did here. So let's say that the browser at the protocol level, instead of running HTTP or HTTPS, actually had its own identifier that was using cryptography, and then this used it as well. There's going to be a future, I believe, within the next 2 years, that governments are finally going to get smart enough to figure out if they create laws that says the browser must do certain things and the user must do certain things. And when they connect, that whole guardianship thing that we just talked about can create an environment where, like, literally, like, if I'll go back over to this and kind of walk through it. So if you looked at some of the things that are happening within this environment, now I'm actually going to jump down to this one right here. So for a parent to be able to say, my child can go use this app during this window. So for instance, let's say Snapchat. Let's say that the child has Snapchat installed on their phone, but they can only use it between 3 o'clock and 5 o'clock. So right after homework and right before family dinner or whatever their ritual is. Imagine that they have the ability to literally say, I want them to actually connect in this way or make payments in this way. It's the type of technology where the browser and the user's world comes together to be able to make these types of features and functions become alive for a parent. For a parent to say, you know what, they can use it between 3 to 5, and they can contact with or connect with these contacts or people on the games, and they can use this credit card as a parent or as a child to make payments for, let's say, a new sword inside of a game. I'm just being generic, but to have all of that come together basically ties to what I was trying to articulate wherever I was. So I don't know where was I? I was right here. So this ability, this is just magic in the future that I see coming together in a way that humanity has never seen before. We think that, first off, it was at the networking layer, like with IP and IPX and TCP/IP, but then it went to the browser layer with HTTP and SSL and all these other things, but they're all busted. Like every one of these things from an encryption standpoint is all broken. I won't go into all the reasons why. Well, no, I will, because it does tie to governments. Like if someone wants to actually go into China, they actually have to have the origination of keys. And that's why this system is so valuable, because it's a ledgerless system at the identity layer where the keys cannot be centrally owned. The way that this technology and the carry technology works enables the keys to be owned by the individual and rotated by the individual and restored by the individual, which is the opposite of what the centralized systems currently do. All the encryption keys that the world that currently is using it, basically, it can actually be controlled. And if you don't believe me, go ahead and look at some of the Verizon stuff or some of the AT&T stuff, or I don't think DigiCert has sold out, but if you really understand, like DigiCert is an SSL provider that started in Linden next to our first company, Direct Point. They're still one of the top 5 in the world here out of Utah. And when you really understand and go through who's doing what, and if you're honest about keys, they're sold out. And I can't, well, I won't go through the negatives, but what I'm trying to say is the browser, the protocol, the www.xyandz.com or whatever it is, can connect into a DID type structure with the user to build a new level of communication that humanity just hasn't seen. That'll be a prediction within the next 2 years that this starts getting adopted within governmental policy. So in other words, the state of Utah could come out with a policy that would say, Facebook, if you want any of our kids in our state to get onto your system, you must use this DID-based protocol in the portal standpoint, which allows the handoff of a guardian to be able to protect a child. It's not just, hey, go ahead and pull up this thing that says you have to be over 18 to go onto this site. And so when they go through that, they do or they don't or they can't. I mean, it's such a joke. I mean, it's better than what it has been over the years, but I personally believe that as a parent, there are certain things that you want your kids exposed to at a certain time and things you don't want your kids exposed to at a certain time. The timing is what's key. The parent should have the right to be able to say, okay, well, yeah, we understand that we actually all come here through this thing called sex and procreation and life, but maybe there's actually a right way to talk about it, or maybe the parent wants to talk about it, or maybe timing should be a certain way. I mean, when we look at it and we're honest, this web browser, the number one use for what it is actually looking at pornography. The number one use. And a parent should be able to say, you know, I actually think that creation's a pretty important thing, and I want to actually be the one that talks to my child about it. And I want to have them exposed to it in a certain way. Or I guess what I'm driving at is the world has a lot of perverted and dishonest things that are happening online that may not even be truthful or reality. Controlling that as a parent, technology can be a tool that can actually enable that. So that's a big use case or example. I hope I answered your question. Any other thoughts or comments?
Will you be building any more apps in the future, Michael?
Right now there's 16 apps. Actually, there's 17. I'll go ahead and pull up what they are. Oh, I gotta go. Let's see here.
That's okay. You can answer next
Yeah,
week.
I'm actually late.
I'll remember to ask.
Yeah, so the apps that we currently have the App Store. So that's actually where you get up to 240 something thousand apps. Then the calendaring system, the support system, the community system, the contacts, the gateway management, which we were just talking about, the identity, which you can actually manage your passwords, your username and passwords that are all centralized. So you can actually change your passwords and then link them to your identity that you verify. And then there's a kids thing, which is a different conversation. The Life app, which is the core to all of them. And then mail, there's a medical side of it. There's a payment side of it. Photos, scanning, which is actually taking a facial scan. And then the communication platform, which we've actually taken the Signal stuff and wrapped it into the Life stuff. And then the web application, and then something that I can't talk about, but you can kind of see it if you look close enough. Anyways, but there are new apps. The biggest one, to be honest with you, is actually this app here, which is the Life app. So this is an application that also runs in the browser and it also runs on the phone, and you can connect directly with different merchants or different contacts or different spaces, all of it. And you can literally have video calls or phone calls or texts or groups. And this is where AI will actually come in for the future. I mean, I believe that development will, like some of the development that we'll be doing within the Clear systems and others, they'll literally come in and change a lot of this. So, yeah. Any other questions before we wrap up? Thoughts? Okay. Well, I appreciate.
Okay, I thought that was someone else. Hello, this is Sean.
Hi, Sean. Welcome. Go ahead and ask the last question, bud.
Sure. With all this, you're using conventional cryptography. Is there any talk about quantum hardening?
The way that we use cryptography, it actually layers cryptography on top of cryptography and on top of cryptography, which basically hardens it from an architecture standpoint, but you still have the speed of the existing cryptography systems. There's no hardened technology that's proven that even works against it today. So on both sides of it. So in other words, the way that we're using it from an architecture, one, it's encrypting encryption whenever you do things on top of things. So when you scan it again and create a company, or scan it again and create an asset, or scan it again and create a birth certificate, it's encrypting it on top of encryption. The user can actually verify who they are, but the rest of them can't. And then the other side of it is the key rotation. So the ability for someone that may have a compromised key to be able to rotate that key out, that is basically the future, like absolutely hardens against any of the cryptography or the quantum realities that are coming. That in and of itself, like think about it, you could even set it up so that every day it just sets up a new one. There's so many beautiful things that you can do with this architecture. Does that make sense to you?
Yes, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Well, with that being said, there's big things that we talked about today. I won't recite them, but we're grateful for the opportunity to be able to be in the middle of all of this. Is there anyone that wants to wrap us up today, maybe with a word of prayer or some guidance or anything that you think are important? Okay. Well,
I can wrap up.
Yeah, please do.
All right. Thank you, Almighty God, for all your help with Michael and his team getting this all together, and for letting us all get to see a lot of the fruits of these efforts, and for all of your help to get the world to work the way it should, through us and through your own power. In your son's name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thanks for joining us, Sean. It's nice to have a new perspective and questions and thoughts. And Danielle, I have to publicly apologize that I do trust you and Jerome, but let's just get things transparent and crank together. Much love, everybody. We'll talk to you soon. Kia ora. Bye.